Chapter 286 to 288. Kaguya's mood soured when she heard what Rei asked her. "You don't know?" She threw an incredulous look at him. "How did you know about me being sealed in the moon then?" "Well, there are legends, but I would like to hear your version of the story." Rei shrugged. He didn't put much belief into all that crap told in the legends. Now that he felt the incredible potential of the being called Kaguya in front of him, he couldn't help but think these legends were all bullshit. Hagoromo and Hamura had no chance to win against her, no matter if she didn't even start scratching the surface of her potential. For a second, a wistful expression appeared on Kaguya's face as she reminisced about her past, but it was gone as fast as it formed. With a cold expression, Kaguya distractedly reached for a cup of tea, not realizing how her hand shook. She took a long gulp from the cup and looked Rei straight into the eyes. Staring into his encouraging eyes, Kaguya gained a newfound determination. It was a surreal feeling for Kaguya. She wanted to have someone to talk about these things for more than 1,000 years now. Nobody, not even her sons, could provide any form of support for her, but now that she looked at the strange man who appeared in her seal, Kaguya wanted, no, deeply desired to let it out. Before she knew it, she started to pour her heart out to him. Rei patiently listened to her story and had to admit the legends were mostly correct. The difference was, these legends had a different way of looking at things. Kaguya had reasons for doing what she did. She wasn't some mad woman who was turning humans into wooden soldiers for kicks and giggles. As she explained what she did and why, her cheeks never dried of tears. She started with how she was selected for the expedition to grow a chakra fruit, how she came to Rei's planet, how she didn't agree with the ways of her traveling companion, and how she betrayed him, knowing it would have been her undoing. It was a story about a naive, young, and stupid girl. She told Rei how she met her husband, how her heart fluttered when he talked about his ideals, how she, for the first time, fell in love, not realizing or paying attention to many important things. With hurt and tear-stricken expression, Kaguya portrayed how her happiness slowly changed into the realization that while she was the wife of her husband, he was a ruler and had a completely different way of looking at marriage than her. She spoke of long, lonely days and short nights of a passion that was slowly but surely burning out, of how her maid was slowly becoming more of a husband to her than her actual husband. Kaguya simply put all of her grievances and poured all of her feelings from her apparently unsatisfying marriage 1,000 years ago on poor Rei's shoulders, causing him to wryly ponder when he became an emotional support line as he silently listened to her. Kaguya eventually realized that she fell more for the fairy tale ideals of her husband than him as an actual person. Her infatuation made her blind, and that led her to a monumental decision. She confessed to Rei that she decided to take the chakra fruit and return back to the Otsutsuki clan. She was aware there would be a punishment waiting for her back home for what happened with her traveling companion. But Kaguya also knew that if she brought the chakra fruit with her, it would be a negligible one. Instead, she would actually get rewarded right after she suffered a bit. These plans were quickly destroyed, however, when one nice morning was ruined by a realization that she was pregnant. It was both a joyful and horrifying experience for Kaguya. While her maid was rejoicing like a small girl, Kaguya felt a myriad of emotions, most of them dark. She cursed her husband, she cursed her luck, she cursed herself for not being careful enough. Rei found it funny. From how Kaguya described it, by the end of their marriage, she felt no satisfaction from having sex with her husband. She just bore with it because she thought it was her duty as his wife. Now she realized she was still stupid at that time and that she should have rejected him completely, but it was already too late to lament about it. It was hilarious how she, a female Otsutsuki who should have had a hard time getting pregnant, actually got impregnated by a mortal, not when she passionately slept with her husband every night during the height of their love, but when the guy only graced her bed once or twice per 2 weeks for a quick release. Rei couldn't help but feel a bit of respect for her husband when he heard that. Thankfully, he could hide his amusement well. It wouldn't be nice to laugh into the face of a crying woman. Kaguya knew she couldn't return to the Otsutsuki clan anymore. For that, she needed to kill her children first, and that was simply not happening. She was happy to become a mother, but it also chased her into the corner. It's ridiculous. There is always something that seals my fate, she dejectedly said with such emotional depth. Rei sighed to himself and decided to reseat himself next to her, supportively embracing her small frame. Kaguya then continued with her story, her words and tone a bit lighter, as she leaned her body into Rei, who felt a bit awkward. Then, the entire debacle with her husband trying to kill her happened. Kaguya understood why he chose to sacrifice her to avoid the war. He was a ruler and had his priorities straight. He had to think about the well-being of his people. But Kaguya had to think about the well-being of her children. She already forfeited her future and her life for them when she decided to keep them rather than return to her clan. And so, she ate the chakra fruit. Her life after that incident improved. She got stronger, became the ruler, and led humans to prosperity and peace. Deep down, however, Kaguya always felt anxious and insecure, always awaiting the Otsutsuki clan to come and punish her and her children. Eating the chakra fruit was the worst crime she could have done, and she had no illusions the Otsutsuki clan would not realize what happened. Her children were a big motivation for her. All she wanted was to raise them well, give them love, care for them, and make sure they would be happy. As such, Kaguya decided to make countermeasures against her clan. Much to Rei's amusement, he bluntly told her he thought her plans sounded dumb, and Kaguya blushed crimson red from embarrassment, unable to refute it. Army of white Zetsu? What good would that do against the Otsutsuki clan? They couldn't be even considered cannon fodder. Instead of trying to create an army, you should have tried to master your own power and train your body. Rei gently chastised the downtrodden woman in his arms. She sacrificed a massive amount of people in her quest to make an army. And for what? To create something as useless as white Zetsu? There was no wonder her legend portrayed her as pure evil. More like pure stupid, Rei thought with a carefully hidden eye roll. Leaning his head down and looking at the fidgety woman in his arms, Rei realized one important thing. In the end, she was simply a scared little girl who found herself shouldering the weight of an entire planet, knowing her clan would one day come for her. Rei waited until Kaguya calmed down her emotions, which got him into a very awkward position. When she was distressed, their closeness didn't bother her, and instead, it provided a measure of comfort. But the more calm Kaguya became, the more self-conscious she got, and Rei could clearly feel her squirm in his arms. Deciding that she no longer needed him, Rei unhanded Kaguya and leaned a bit away from her before she also slid to the opposite side with a small blush, creating a gap between them. Inwardly, Rei enjoyed the current atmosphere between them immensely. He pictured his meeting with Kaguya in many different ways, but this was so unexpected that he couldn't help but marvel at his luck while getting the maximum amount of entertainment from the overpowered, bashful woman. Rei decided to stay silent, making sure to make Kaguya squirm to the extreme, only deciding to intervene when he felt she was reaching the limit of her patience. It wouldn't do for her to explode. "I don't understand," Rei suddenly said, picking a topic to distract the distraught and fidgeting woman next to him, getting her utmost attention. "Why did you simply not beat your sons during your last fight?" He threw her a meaningful yet piercing look. Kaguya glanced at Rei, tightening her fists. "I wasn't strong enough. Stop bullshitting me!" Rei rolled his eyes at her in an annoyed manner. "Bullshitting?" Kaguya tilted her head, not understanding the reference, causing Rei's eyebrows to twitch. "It means, stop lying to me," Rei explained. "I can feel your chakra sealed in this seal. There is no way you were simply overpowered by your sons." he stated with a casual finality. Kaguya lowered her head as a self-deprecating smile appeared on her lips. I simply couldn't hurt them. They are my children after all. That fact won't change, no matter if they betrayed me or not. Hearing her reason, Rei hummed and inwardly rejoiced at the fact both Hamura and Hagoromo were already out of the picture. That would have complicated the situation immensely if that's how Kaguya felt about them despite everything. Somebody could argue that Hagoromo was still present in the world, but Rei would only snort at that. A person like Hagoromo, a self-righteous bastard who thinks his ideas and vision are the best, would long ago intervene in the ninja world if he could. That meant, while the old coot most likely could see, he could not affect the happenings, which was just fine as far as Rei was concerned. Let the dead stay dead. You know that both of your children are long dead, don't you? Rei carefully asked, wanting to confirm Kaguya's thoughts on the matter without making her realize his intentions. It wouldn't do to free her from the seal, only to have her bring someone like Hagoromo back to the land of the living. That would suck so much. Rei was definitely not going to do that. Ever. Kaguya's expression soured as pain flashed through her pupilless eyes while her forehead creased, making her closed third eye visible for the first time during their meeting, startling Rei. He was wondering why she had only two eyes, but now he understood that her third eye socket was simply hidden. I figured, it's been more than a millennium after all, she bitterly answered, evading Rei's gaze. Rei simply stayed quiet and waited for her to continue, not offering any comforting words or the like. It took a while, but Kaguya did, indeed, eventually continue. But I am also interested in what kind of world my children created. A small smile appeared on her face. I can't say I don't want to smash it to pieces, though. She sighed. Their vision was the primary reason why we fought, and I am still somewhat livid because of that. Strangely, when I am near you, my anger as if left me. She calmly smiled at Rei. I see. So as long as the taint from the chakra fruit in her chakra is kept in check, there will be no murder-happy rabbit goddess causing problems for me. Good to know. Rei hummed, putting it into his mental notebook of seals he would have to develop. Would you bring them back to life if you could, though? Seeing that he would not get an answer to his secret question, Rei decided to ask her bluntly. Kaguya was momentarily startled by Rei's question, but then slowly blinked in a pondering manner before starting to slowly speak, mulling each word on her tongue with great care. I don't think so. Kaguya's face scrunched in hurt and self-blame. Rei was inwardly happy when he saw her expression, though. The sheer emotions conveyed told him that Kaguya was not just acting. She genuinely felt deep in her heart that she wouldn't resurrect her children if she could, and it brought her a lot of confusion from which pain and guilt were born. There was no greater confirmation that Rei had nothing to worry about in this regard. Kaguya, not noticing the pleased glint in Rei's eyes, continued. I'd like to say I would, in a heartbeat, but I can't. I feel the desire, but I also know I wouldn't be able to persuade myself to actually do it. They betrayed me. Kaguya spoke in a downtrodden tone before lifting her gaze towards Rei. Does that make me a bad person? A bad mother? Rei gently shook his head in reassurance. I don't know. That is a question you have to answer for yourself. Your children, however, chose their paths, and the most you can do is respect their decision. He truthfully answered. As far as Rei saw it, both Hagoromo and Hamura were adults, more like corpses at this point. And as such, they had the right to decide for themselves. Kaguya mulled over that answer, bringing yet another heavy silence between them. Rei almost thought he got her into a trance when even after an entire half hour she didn't move. But then suddenly, a question was asked. How are you planning to free me from the seal? Kaguya distractedly asked. Rei blinked, looking at her, and noticed her face was still blank as if she was deep in thought. He realized she asked mostly to get her head thinking about something else than Hagoromo and Hamura. Rei happily obliged. I have to devise a counter-seal that can unravel the one sealing you. There are many ways to do that, but, well, finding the best one will be difficult, he said. Kaguya slowly nodded. Wouldn't it be better to just give me enough chakra so that I can blast the seal from inside out? She curiously asked, distracted enough that her mood improved. Rei, however, just snorted in reply. You are not blasting anything, woman. The pocket dimension of this seal is literally located in the middle of the moon. Blasting the seal from inside out with pure force would result in blasting the moon itself apart, which would result in the destruction of my planet, he explained. So not gonna happen. Ah. Kaguya sheepishly averted her head, feeling embarrassed at her suggestion. But Rei naturally knew why she was so impatient. I reckon being in the seal alone must be lonely, so I can tweak it a bit so you can telepathically contact me. You know, to have somebody to talk to, he said while inwardly sighing. His next few years seemed to be deprived of much privacy, if the happy gleam in Kaguya's eyes was any indicator. Why must she be too cute to not take pity on her? Rei lamented. Are you sure about this? Shikaku looked from behind his Hokage desk at the calm Tsunade, who sat on one of his sofas for guests, sipping tea. Yes? Why? Do you have any complaints? Tsunade asked him in a tone that clearly said it wouldn't matter even if he had any, but she was willing to listen if he wanted to reason with her. Shikaku could only inwardly sigh at the antics of this insufferable woman. Honestly, this was becoming a recurrent theme. It didn't happen all that often, but when Tsunade wanted something, Tsunade got it. What really irked him, though, was that she always came up with some demand when he least expected it. Like now, for example. Tsunade pushing her way into the formation of the new genin teams was something Shikaku never expected to happen. It was his responsibility as the Hokage to set them up based on information from the academy teachers, and Tsunade should have no interest in it. Yet, here they were. How to say this? Shikaku looked at the sheet with the teams, a small frown forming on his lips as he skipped all of the unimportant cannon fodder ones that posed no problems. Let's start with Team 7. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Hinata Hyuga, led by Kakashi Hatake with Anko Mitarashi being co-teacher. He stated, moving his gaze onto Tsunade before deadpanning. Now that's blatant favoritism. Yoshino, his wife and secretary, who dutifully sat opposite Tsunade on the guest sofas and was refilling her teacup, could only wryly smile while inwardly agreeing with her husband's assessment. That team, it was as if Tsunade said, screw it, and threw the best prospects from the year into one team. That was just not done. Ever. Giving them Hatake Kakashi as their teacher on top of that? Yoshino could already see the headache her husband will have to go through in the next few days due to the complaints of other clan heads, advisors, influential figures, etc. But the real problem. Why don't you just make that team and give them to be trained under Mitarashi-san? Yoshino voiced her opinion. Normally, she would be instantly silenced. After all, she was just a secretary. Then again, being also Hokage's wife had its perks. From time to time, Yoshino intervened with a question or a suggestion, and Tsunade was glad for that. She knew that Shikaku, despite his immense intellect, had a bad tendency to seek the least troublesome way in order to accomplish his goals. Unfortunately, the least troublesome didn't always equal the best. She can't do that, Shikaku answered Yoshino's question. Anko is not on the active roster of Konoha forces, and even if she was there, she never achieved Jonin status before she became the Senju representative. which kinda both pushed her proverbial influence to the highest places, while also putting a complete stopper into the advancement of her career as a kunoichi. And since she never returned to the active roster, she is still just a chunin, Tsunade added. Couldn't you just, I don't know, disregard the rules for this instance? Yoshino tried to be helpful and gave a suggestion based on the facts she possessed. Tsunade smiled. I could, but I won't. She was daimyo. What she said went. It would only take one signature to put Team 7 under Anko's tutelage. Doing so would create some unnecessary minor problems Tsunade simply didn't feel like facing. We all know about Kakashi's approach, Tsunade said, making Yoshino dryly chuckle, while Shikaku sighed in exasperation when he remembered that Kakashi dropped 5 teams so far without even considering them. The dude could preach about the lack of teamwork all he wanted, but Shikaku simply didn't buy that bullshit. Expecting 3 kids put together on a team to have passable teamwork without any practice was just ridiculous. Shikaku knew that Kakashi was simply pissed he was dismissed from ANBU, so he was currently sulking. For years, it was just one more instance of Sarutobi's foolishness coming to bite the next Hokage in the ass. He won't teach the kids a shit if they don't pass his secret personal evaluation. And only God knows what that pervert's criteria for passing actually are. Considering this team will be forced onto him because of the last loyal Uchiha, I don't think Kakashi will like it, Tsunade continued. She knew that for Kakashi to train his Genin team properly, he would have to take a liking to them. In case that didn't happen, though, his Genin team would be left to fend for themselves, no matter how much the white-haired moron preached about friendship and camaraderie. It wasn't even that the guy was incompetent. On the contrary, Kakashi was incredible trainer. When he was still in ANBU, he was one of the best ANBU trainers in Konoha. He was the guy who trained newbies up to the ANBU standards, and during his reign, the Konoha ANBU was in its golden age. The problem was, Kakashi was too used to training competent and experienced ninjas. He expected them to desire to better themselves and put in appropriate effort without him butting in. He was used to just giving directions, not personally guiding them, and it worked, for ANBU. But Genin teams were different. A Jonin sensei has to motivate his pupils to actually desire advancement. And even then, he has to make sure the focus and direction of his pupils are on the right track, because a simple desire to improve, coupled with moronic training, was not effective. If Might Guy did just push-ups the whole day, he would not become the best taijutsu practitioner in Konoha. The guy might seem stupid, but he had a lot of knowledge in body improvement through training, diets, and various other ways. Just exercising simply won't cut it in the ninja world. In this aspect, Kakashi lacked. He just couldn't care less if his pupils were motivated. Worse yet, even if they had enough motivation, he would never hold their hand and guide them in the correct direction to make the most of said motivation. He wasn't really doing it intentionally, though. The man had his issues, and he simply judged others based on himself, which honestly did not work considering he was a rare type of genius. Holding freshly graduated Genins to his standards was just stupidity. As such, you want to insert Anko into the team so they get at least some training. Shikaku nodded in understanding. But the problem is still here. People will see that as blatant favoritism and come to complain to me, he whined. Tsunade and Yoshino just rolled their eyes at him. Then tell them she is there to take care of Naruto. The kid is Uzumaki, a relative to Senju. Having a Senju look after him should be normal, even if Anko is only an honorary one. Tsunade shrugged. Hearing her reasoning, Shikaku started to ponder. Yes, that could work. It will still be troublesome to explain, but yeah. He mumbled to himself, unhappy that the troublesome blonde in front of him wasn't persuaded to drop her idea. Well, at least she was willing to compromise.